Uh, Major news out of the Maine Senate race this morning. Janet Mills, she's the governor of Maine. She dropped out of the Senate race. She had a decent chance of winning, and now the Maine senator race has swung to the right. The person who now will be in charge of the holding up the Democrat banner in the Senate is a guy named Graham Planter. Graham Planter's claim to fame is that his Nazi tattoo has been covered up. Maine Senator candidate Planter says tattoo Nazi symbol has been covered. So they're sending their best. Graham Planter also, according to the Senate Republicans, has a exciting internet history of comments. They just released this ad. I want to get Senator Ron Johnson, who's ready to join us in just one moment, response to this.
A dramatic reading of Graham Plattner's Reddit comments.
Holy how about people just take some responsibility for themselves and not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to? Rape is a real thing.
This is the Democrat
You're
Senator,
so worried about it to buy
Democrat
Kevlar
Senate
underwear.
Nominee.
You think you might not get blacked out up around people you aren't comfortable with. Why don't black people tip? I work as a bartender and it always amazes me how solid this stereotype is. Living in white rural America, I'm afraid to tell you they actually are. I got older and became a communist.
Oh.
Still got the guns though. I don't trust the fascists to act politely. I did used to love America, or at least the idea of it. These days I'm pretty disgusted by it all. Feel free to back it up with facts. This was the gayest, not in a fun dick-sucking way, thing I've ever seen.
This has been a dramatic reading of Graham.
So joining us live right now, somebody who, well, if Democrats vote for Graham Plattner, would have to share an office with him, or at least a building, is Senator Ron Johnson, who also has some major breaking news this morning on Dr. Fauci and the COVID cover-up. Please welcome back to the program the esteemed senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Senator, thank you so much for being here. Good morning.
Well, Benny, I got a feeling that Susan Collins is pretty happy this morning. Although, I would be highly concerned if that guy gets elected to the Senate. I mean, they elected Adam Schiff.
That's right.
Democrats will do some pretty outlandish things nowadays. The radical left is a pretty powerful group.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so just your quick take on this. Obviously, this man is unhinged. He said very disparaging things about gay people, black people, all people. He has a Nazi tattoo. He's a communist. I'm waiting for Barack Obama to disavow him, right? Like, wouldn't this would be the way to go, right? If you're against violence, you'll disavow Jay Jones, who says he wants to kill Republican children, as the Virginia Attorney General. You'll obviously disavow the Nazi communist guy who hates black people, right? Who's running for Senate as a Democrat in Maine.
Right. I know Maine's a beautiful state. I think the people in Maine are reasonably moderate. I mean, evidence the fact that they elect Republicans and Democrats, and regardless who they elect, they're generally moderate members. I've got to believe the people in Maine would reject somebody like this if they fully understand who he is and what his record is. And my guess is Susan Collins and the NRSC will put a few dollars behind making sure that folks in Maine know who this fellow is.
Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, the Voter Rights Act ruling yesterday, obviously that was the talk of the entire day. Everybody melting down, Chuck Schumer melting down, losing their minds. Your take on this, Senator? We think it's a joyous thing that you can no longer be racist in drawing congressional districts. That what you're making is a congressional ghetto by doing that. You shouldn't be able to do that. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. That's what the court ruled. The best way to stop being racist is to stop doing racist things, right?
Well, again, I don't always agree with Chief Justice Roberts, but that was his quote. If you want to stop discrimination by racial on a basis of race, stop discriminating on the basis of race. I mean, that's pretty much his quote. It's just true. So stop doing it. So I think this is a very good sign. It was a correct decision. Our Constitution basically let states run their elections. They let states, the state legislature, figure out how to apportion the districts based on the census. The census apportions how many seats they get, then the states take it from there and figure out when you draw your districts. And that's going to be a political process. There's no doubt about it. What the Supreme Court has just said is, okay, fine, it's a political process, but you can't make those decisions based on race. Do it based on whether the Republicans, Democrats, right? You can do it on a partisan basis. You just can't do it on race. So it's certainly not the end of the world. It's in the right direction. It's returning some constitutional protections for everybody else.
So constitutional protections for us during COVID was that at the very least, we thought our medical professionals and those who were making the big decisions would certainly not have created the COVID virus, loosed it on us, used bioweapons 9/11 Patriot Act funds in order to create these viruses illegally offshores. But then at the very least, if they were doing all that, Senator, they'd keep the evidence and not destroy it. And that's what we found now in the Dr. Fauci scientist's indictment and arrest earlier this week, Dr. David Morans. Can you please fill us in on that? Your office, of course, is critical in the understanding of this because you have been the tip of the spear. And I think you have new reporting out just this morning on this, correct?
Well, first of all, I got to give a huge shout out to my staff who, years ago with our investigation, we weren't getting any documents from the Biden administration, none. But, we requested documents from some of the universities like UNC Chapel Hills and other universities. This one came out of University of Texas. We got a document production of about 115,000 pages in response to our oversight request. And my staff picked the needle out of the haystack out of the 115,000 pages. They found that email, David Morans. I mean, we didn't know anything about David Morans. How they found it, it's remarkable. But that was the email where he was bragging the fact that he had his FOIA lady had taught him how to make emails disappear. And if you're going to send anything sensitive, send it to my Gmail. Now, that's in direct violation of the federal records law. Basically saying he knows how he's destroying federal records. He's avoiding it. So again, we of course turned that over to the Inspector General under the Biden administration. They did nothing. That Inspector General's office took President Trump to come in, kind of overhaul that Inspector General's office. And finally, we have an Inspector General who pursued that. And we've got the indictment against David Morans, which is, again, probably just the tip of the iceberg. I think the new news you're talking about is the report we released in conjunction with our hearing yesterday, where, by the way, within that report, we see further evidence of FDA officials knowing full well that they're covering something up. So let's talk about this offline. This isn't the kind of information we should be putting in email. So we see that same type of evasion, that same kind of cover up. But the big news from our hearing and our report is that on March 1st of 2021, not even 3 months into the emergency use authorization, Peter Marks, the head of CBER, was given a briefing by Anna Schwartzman. She was the expert in FDA working with the inventor of the mathematical algorithm that analyzed VAERS data. They came to Peter Marks, gave him a briefing, said that the current algorithm, because of the uniqueness of having two injections that were very similar and the explosion in VAERS reports was masking adverse events and safety signals. And so they'd come up with a state-of-the-art system that 26 days later, they presented the results showing there was 49 cases of extreme masking, 25 safety signals being revealed once they unmasked them, including sudden cardiac death, different types of strokes, pulmonary infarction, Bell's palsy, and Peter Marks and the top officials at FDA completely ignored it. They shunted her off to the side. They told her to cease and desist.